Mukoma, ndati ndikunyorerei tsamba kunzwa kuti muri sei. Kuti moudza amai vasanetsekane. Ndiri mupenyu zvangu uye ndigere zvakanaka. Ndiri kuno kuSouth Africa. Ndogara mutown. Pekurara ndinapo. Shamwari ndinadzo. Asi ndonzwa kurasikirwa dzimwe nguva.
Right. Umwe nomwe wedu ane zvikonzero zvake zvaakabvira kumba, handiti ka? Umwe nomwe akabva kumba zvakasiyana siyana, handiti? Kana ngandudza kubva kumba kwaakaita iye, how you left home. Kwakabva kumba zvaita sei? Zvanga zvaita sei? Ngatitaurei. Ngatitaurei.
Ngasuke Bulawayo ngokuhlupheka. Anhlala logogo. Manje gogo wayengatholi imali yokuthenga ukudla, ukuthenga ini. So ngabona kungcono ukuthi ngisukele ekhaya ngize la.
Ngibachela ukuthi ngihamba kubhuti wami ungapha eSouth Africa eJoburg. So la izinto ukuthi zimhambela kuhle. So lami ngathi I want lami ukuthi izinto lami kungihambele kuhle lami. Try. I'm going to try. Maybe kungaba ngcono.
The issue of migration is about the natural way in which people have lived. People do not recognize borders. It's our governments that recognize that. Historically, people have moved because situations become unbearable, be it war, be it disasters, be it poverty, HIV and AIDS. That's what's driving people, the dire need to survive. And children, like adults, will move in order to survive.
Our law clinics see a considerable number of unaccompanied children, primarily from Zimbabwe, and smaller numbers from the DRC, Somalia, Ethiopia, Eritrea, Uganda, Burundi, and Rwanda. We've seen children as young as 6 and 7 with their siblings, all the way to 17, 18 years old.
People get quite preoccupied with the numbers, how many are coming. Nobody knows the answer to that question. We don't know how many children cross into the border. In particular, it's quite hard to do research in border areas. What we do see is an increase in the number of children migrating at the time where education stops being free in their own country or when they can no longer afford it, and then they're looking for an income.
Mukoma, ndinoziva kuti unodawo kuuya kuno. Rwendo urwu harusi nyore, pane zvinotyisa zvakawanda. Muka, pfuti dzevaridzi vemapurazi, masoja neutsinye hwevanhu kuno. Handidi muteedzere mawiro andakaita.
Bengilomngani wami. Sikhwele train. Ebusuku. Siyahlangana nomunye umuntu esimaziyo futhi. Wathi bisana imali ngicross isiborder. Samnika imali bengimtrust but waphinda wasibalekela ngasemuva.
Children have been exploited, they've been robbed, they've been assaulted, they've been sexually abused.
I didn't figure out about ngathi ngiyangena amapholisa angalisa ukungena ngaphinda futhi okwesibili bayala futhi ngingena ngabe sensiyalala eBad Bridge ekuseni mangivuka ngihlangana labanye futhi bathi bayochapha ngababuza ukuthi bachapha ngabathi emanzini.
There has been a lot of reports of police brutality, police dealing inappropriately with children. That's why they increasingly make use of smugglers and those kinds of people, the kind of syndicates that you see on the border, you know, the Magoma and others.
Nangathi hayi elwandle njani ngesava mara ngeze inhliziyo yami sithi njani anisela uhambe ngahamba angifike elwandle ngithola umfula ugcwele amanzi ngathi mamphongo uqinisela ngemva sokuchaphe umuntu oyi-1 wabopha intambo phambili enye yabopha emuva thina sachapha ngentambo sadlula lwana wayesele emuva wayengela umuntu owenzana ukumbambela intambo owesithathwa ngamanzi wahamba lamanzi.
If the child cannot manage and cannot cope with the trauma, he buries the trauma subconsciously. So what you and I see as maybe a very happy child, a very ordinary, normal child playing in the sand, interacting with his friends. But we do know that trauma that children now experience are manifested later in their adult life. If you go into, whether it's Messina, whether it's the Methodist Church in Johannesburg, it's very striking that most of the children are boys. So the question is, where are the girls?
I was living with my father and my mother and my sister and my brother. In our family, we are 5 in our family. But the situation, it was very tough because there was no education. So we're living there at the home instead of going to school. When I was there at home, I used to sell the sweet and the biscuits to find the money. But my mother, she was wondering why I'm selling, but I was just selling secretly. And that man is the one that I used to come here. But it was not so safe.
We're all trying now to understand more about the trafficking of girls between countries, because we do know that girls enter into South Africa in a different manner, very silently, without anybody knowing. It's very organized. When they arrive in Beitbridge, there's already a car waiting to get the girls. So it's those kinds of trafficking that's going in between borders. We need to educate, especially the girl child, so that girls can understand the dangers that they put themselves in.
Pane vanhu vanotora vasikana kuti vagare navo vachivashandira. Dzimwe nguva mumakicheni vachibika nekuchengeta vana. Dzimwe nguva unenge uchiti wawana basa asi wozoona kuti uri kuseenzeswa. Asi munhu haufaniri kuramba. Chamuka inyama. Asi ndichawana basa ndozokutumirai mari nembatya pamwe nekaredio.
Kulenye irole elibuyileyo la lisithi abafuna umsebenzi umngane wami okhwele irole. Mina anzwanga ukufika ukukhwela ukuhamba le role. But ngapho ngikulandela ngifuna ukuthi umngane wami engahambi yedwa ngoba wayesiserious ukuhamba. Sahamba sonke most about 60 km ukuthi sifike ePietersburg. lalise efamu safika saqala ukusebenza sasivuka ngama-5 sise emsebenzini sitshayise ngama-8 ebusuku all day sasitshona singadlanga.
We find that if a child is illegally in the country, they won't go to access protection from the police or any other official if they are being exploited. And there is just no enforcement of labor laws around child labor for this reason.
Abanye ababehlala khona phe eplazini angikhona basitshela ukuthi abafana libuye lapha lina I don't sure ukuthi lingaphenduka lina kusase emasimini lingaphenduka lina hayi ampona qala ukusaba ethi hayi uNkulunkulu uyasizwa.
A child in South Africa must have access to health, education, and social services. It does not say that the child has to be a South African.
Usually, the child will come to us with problems of trying to access documentation. They will have extreme difficulty trying to access a whole range of social services and government services, which the primary key for accessing is some form of documentation.
The truth is that many children, and particularly the most vulnerable children, even if they're entitled to that legal documentation, don't always get it, and so remain undocumented.
Ngabe ngikofi igonyeti ngiseJoburg. Joburg ngahlala iviki ezimbili ngabanjwa ngamapolisi ngabiswa la futhi airport.
Now, a child may not be arrested, detained, and deported. There are laws against that kind of violation against a child's rights.
A child who's unaccompanied, who has no parents, should be recognized as a child in need of care, which is a definition used in our Child Care Act, which means that they have to be put in touch with the social worker, they have to go through the children's courts and so on. And then there could be a process of trying to reunite them with a relative in the other country. In practice, almost no children who cross the border, and particularly who live in border areas, which are quite under-resourced, ever have access to that kind of service. So they do tend to slip under the radar of service providers.
Taizvinyebera pataironga kuno kwakadzvanya akomana asi zvinenge zviri kuita nani. Dzimwe nguva kuchechi ndokwatomboowanawo chikafu tichitomborarawo koko kana zvakapuresa. Ndo vanototibatsira kutuma tsamba kumba.
I don't think that there's only one solution for all children who move. I feel that the family unit is a very important unit and integral to child protection. If a child is able to return to that family unit, they should do that. If it's not possible for the child to return to a family unit, then we must consider options about how to get the child to remain in this country and to integrate that child.
We can't place all of these children in institutions or in children's homes. You will have children that are institutionalized, that don't know any other thing but institutions, and so they do anything to get back into an institution, whether that institution is a prison. So we need to open up our communities, we need to open up our doors. That is going to be the breakthrough. If we can get communities, local government and local NGOs and local community-based organizations capacitated and trained in order to take on the responsibility.
Ngiyababhalela incwadi. Angibabhalela ukuthi hlale kuhle, ngi-right. Ngisatry.
Mukoma ndogaro kukufungai naamai. Ndichitomborota ndadzoka kumba. Paunomuka ndopandomboona kuti ihope. Handizive kuti ndinokuonai rini, asi manje ndodzoka kumba ndini wenyu.